I never imagined that a simple food delivery would end with someone in handcuffs, least of all my own neighbor. But that's exactly how it happened when Sheila Watkins, the self-proclaimed queen of our neighborhood HOA, decided my takeout habits were a direct violation of community standards. It started about 3 months ago, right after I moved into Oakwood Estates, a picture-perfect suburban development where every mailbox matches. Every lawn is trimmed to exactly 3 inches, and every homeowner is expected to smile and nod like Stepford citizens. I work from home as a software developer, which means I rely on delivery far more than I'd like to admit. After a brutal coding sprint that stretched into several sleepless nights, I decided to reward myself with a feast from my favorite steakhouse. As usual, I tracked the order on my phone. When I saw "driver has arrived," my stomach practically growled in anticipation. But 5 minutes passed. No knock, no doorbell. I refreshed the app, and there it was, a photo of my food sitting at a front door. Only problem? It wasn't mine. I called the driver immediately. He sounded confused, swearing he followed my instructions to the letter. "The lady said she was expecting it," he explained. "She even gave me your name when I asked." That was the first time I met Sheila Watkins, early 60s. Hair so perfectly highlighted it could have its own Instagram account, sculpted into a sharp weapon-grade bob. As HOA president, she patrolled Oakwood Estates like it was a restricted military base. I recognized her distinctive teal front door from the photo, so I walked 3 houses down. When she answered, the mouth-watering scent of my steak dinner spilled out of her home. "Excuse me," I said as politely as I could manage. "I think the driver accidentally delivered my order here." Sheila's expression didn't flicker. With a sugary, sweet tone that was somehow both polite and menacing, she replied, "Oh, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. The HOA has a strict policy against food deliveries after 6 p.m. on weekdays. It's outlined clearly in Section 12.3 of the Community Guidelines." She gave me a thin smile and added, "As HOA president, it's my responsibility to enforce those rules. Consider this a friendly first warning." I stared at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. "That's my dinner. I paid for it. Can I please have my food?" Her smile never budged. "I've already disposed of it properly. You'll receive a written notice tomorrow. Welcome to Oakwood Estates." And just like that, the door clicked shut. I stood on her porch, out $75 and still hungry. I ended up ordering a pizza out of sheer spite, fuming the entire time. Sure enough, the next morning, a violation notice appeared in my mailbox, official HOA letterhead, signature, and all. It cited a rule that didn't actually exist in the bylaws I'd received at closing. I emailed the HOA board to clarify. Only automated responses came back. I decided not to escalate. It wasn't worth starting a war over one stolen dinner, but Sheila wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every time I ordered delivery, somehow she got to it first. It was like she had a built-in delivery radar. Sometimes she claimed the drivers were violating parking regulations by idling too long. Other times, she told them I'd canceled the order but forgot to call the restaurant. Once, unbelievably, she pretended to be my wife, saying I was indisposed and she'd take the food on my behalf. By the time I realized what was happening, I'd lost nearly $300 in meals. I decided enough was enough. I installed a doorbell camera and started documenting everything. I sent formal complaints to both the HOA board and the management company overseeing Oakwood Estates. The other board members seemed sympathetic, but no one dared to challenge Sheila. "She's been president for almost 10 years, one neighbor whispered to me after a tense community meeting. Last year, she had the Petersons' maple tree removed while they were on vacation because she said it dropped too many leaves on the sidewalk. The year before, she fined the Garcases daily until they erased their daughter's chalk drawings from their own driveway. Nobody stands up to her. That's when I decided to stop fighting fair. I placed a massive order from the most expensive French restaurant in town. The total? Just over $520. It was outrageous, but I wasn't buying food. I was baiting a trap. The order included several bottles of expensive wine, Wagyu beef tartare, truffle-infused entrees, and rich desserts. I waited near the window, watching as the delivery car rolled into our cul-de-sac. and right on cue, Sheila marched out of her house like a general on patrol, intercepting the driver before he even made it to my porch. Through my doorbell camera, I could hear her smug voice. Community regulations require me to accept all deliveries. Oh, Sheila. This time, she had no idea what she'd just stepped into. The delivery driver hesitated for a moment, clearly confused but too nervous to challenge Sheila. He handed over my 500-plus order and walked back to his car. Instead of storming down the street to confront her like I wanted to, I took a breath and made a different call, to the police non-emergency line. "I'd like to report a theft," I said evenly when the dispatcher answered. "My neighbor has been stealing my food deliveries for weeks, and today she took an order worth over $500. I have video evidence, today's incident and several others." The dispatcher confirmed that an officer would be dispatched. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled quietly into our cul-de-sac, lights flashing softly, no sirens. From my window, I watched the officers approach Sheila's front door and ring the bell. Her reaction was priceless. She opened the door with that same practiced poise, but the second she saw the uniforms, her expression twisted from confusion to outrage. I could see her gesturing wildly, no doubt reciting her imaginary HOA authority to confiscate unauthorized deliveries. One of the officers eventually turned and walked toward my house. "Sir," he began, trying to sound neutral, "your neighbor claims she was acting in her capacity as HOA president by confiscating deliveries that violate community guidelines." I didn't even bother hiding my smile. I pulled up the neighborhood bylaws on my phone and showed him the relevant sections. "There's no rule about food deliveries," I said, then opened the doorbell footage from that night and several past incidents. The officer's face grew more serious with each clip. "And the value of today's order?" he asked finally. $523.47, I replied, holding up the digital receipt. "Includes an $80 Bordeaux and a $100 Wagyu steak," he nodded. "Wait here, please." I watched from the edge of my driveway as he rejoined his partner and Sheila. Their conversation grew more heated. Sheila's gestures turned frantic. And then, to my astonishment, one of the officers reached for his handcuffs while the other read her rights. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Sheila's face had gone the exact shade of overcooked salmon. Moments later, she was being escorted to the cruiser, hands cuffed behind her back. Later that evening, one of the officers returned to take my formal statement. "Your neighbor is being charged with grand larceny," he explained matter-of-factly. "Theft over $500 is a felony here. She claims she was disposing of the food for health and safety reasons, but we found your entire order in her refrigerator. The wine was still on the counter." He gave a small, wry smile. Apparently, she was surprised to learn that being HOA president doesn't grant her the power to seize other people's property. The neighborhood's reaction was immediate and intense. The following evening, an emergency HOA meeting was called. When I walked into the community center, it was standing room only. Sheila's name was the only item on the agenda. One by one, neighbors stood up and shared their own horror stories about her overreach, the board. Members, clearly uncomfortable, sat stiffly at the front of the room as residents recounted years of petty power plays. When it was my turn, I didn't give a speech. I just pressed play on a compilation from my doorbell camera, Sheila intercepting deliveries at all hours. Sometimes in her bathrobe, sometimes in gardening gloves, sometimes with her phone glued to her ear like she was on official business. The footage spoke louder than any words could. The board voted unanimously to remove her from her position that night. Howard, the vice president, a soft-spoken retired accountant, announced they'd be launching a full audit of HOA finances for the past 3 years. "We've also received notice that Ms. Watkins has been released on bail," he told the crowd. "But she's facing felony charges and substantial legal costs." 2 days later, I was working at my desk when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Sheila, except not the Sheila I knew. Gone was the iron-fisted neighborhood tyrant with perfect hair. Her highlighted bob hung limp. Her makeup was barely there. She clutched a designer purse like it were a lifeline. "My attorney says I need to make restitution," she said softly. Her voice was fragile, frayed around the edges. She thrust a thick envelope toward me. "This covers everything you lost." plus interest. I took the envelope without opening it. Thank you, I said simply. She lingered, eyes glassy and uncertain. Maybe she expected forgiveness. Maybe she thought I'd agree to drop the charges. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. Was it worth it? All that effort, all that control, over something so small? Her mask cracked. You don't understand, she hissed, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. I've given everything to maintain standards in this community, everything, and now I might lose my real estate license over this. This misunderstanding. Her eyes filled with tears. Do you have any idea what a criminal record will do to my career? My reputation? For the first time, Sheila Watkins wasn't a tyrant. She was just a woman who'd finally run into a wall she couldn't bulldoze through. That wasn't my intention, I told her honestly. I just wanted to eat my dinner in peace. She opened her mouth to say something, but a familiar sound cut through the silence, the cheerful chime of my phone. I glanced at the screen and smiled. Excuse me, I said. That's my lunch delivery. And this time, I paused deliberately. I think it'll actually make it to my door.